The Sunday games are almost in the books, and now it's time to take an early look at the Week 13 waiver wire. We're going to be looking at those players you're going to be thinking about picking up here in the next few days. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now because we're going deep, looking at the waiver wire every single day, trying to find those diamonds in the rough. On top of that, we're doing deep dives with the You Need series every day on as many players as possible, so you can get a deeper look at some of these players who are trending. On top of that, we use these videos to help you set your lineups. Click that button. Stop missing out. But we're going to dig in with Jonnu Smith. He's been hot lately. He's been getting a lot of targets. Went off today. 9 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. He's been consistent with targets as well. 7 targets week 7, 6 in week 8, 6 in week 9. 4 in week 10, and then week 11, we got 8, and then 11 this week. We're getting a lot of volume. We're getting a lot of opportunity. And if you're hurting at the tight end spot, or you're working a Rolodex of streamer tight ends, he needs to be worked in there. There are some off games coming up, but still the volume's hot enough to where you can roll with them in a pinch if need be. Jeremy McNichols is a running back to look at, especially if you're hurting at the running back position because Brian Robinson is banged up. The matchups coming up ain't too great. We also got a bye week in week 14, but he snuck some fantasy production earlier in the season, and he's going to be seeing some extra work. Not a must get, but if you're looking for ancillary touches, maybe something like 5 to 10 a game if Brian Robinson is out. But if you're looking for some extra touches, if you're hurting that bad, Jeremy McNichols could be a guy to look at. Ameer Abdullah is hitting. He's getting work in the passing game. Zamir White and Alexander Madison both were out in week 12. A bad matchup against the Chiefs on the road in week 13, but he's getting work in the passing game. We got a touchdown in week 12 against the Broncos, and that's lending to opportunity. We talked about him in the You Need series, and he's getting volume when these guys are out, and if you need volume, that's enough. That's enough. And if you don't need the volume and you're good at running back, and maybe you don't need this, but Ameer Abdullah is getting enough workload to do something for you in fantasy football. Noah Brown has been getting a lot of targets as of late. Since week 6, we got 8, then 1, then 6, 6, 7, 4, and 10. We're getting volume. The ball's coming our way. It's not always leading to fantasy production, but this week we got 6 balls for 71 yards. Enough for you to get by. 13.1 PPR fantasy points off 10 targets. The workload's there. And if the Commanders are in a game script where they got to push the ball, they're playing from behind, they got to come back or anything like that, you're going to wish you had Noah Brown. We got Tennessee in a bye week coming up. Not the greatest, but still we're getting volume on the weekly. That's a good thing to look at when you're looking at a wide receiver. DeMario, Douglas, and the gang. And when I mean the gang, I'm talking about Kayshon Boutte. I'm talking about Kendrick Bourne. Pick your Patriots wide receiver and go with the gamble. Last week it was Kendrick Bourne. This week it was DeMario Douglas. Next week it could be Kayshon Boutte. But all these wide receivers are in the carousel effect that could get it any single week. DeMario Douglas got you a little bit, but he's always getting the volume. He's always getting a 20+% target share every week. He's always getting a good volume of targets. 9 in week 9, 5 in week 10, 6 in week 11, 7 in week 12. Not always leading to good fantasy production, but at least you know the work rate is there. Kayshon Boutte is running a lot of routes. Kendrick Bourne is getting targets downfield. Any one of these wide receivers can get it on any given Sunday. Elijah Moore is still getting the workload. Even in the snow, we can get 5 targets. 3 catches, 21 yards. But we're looking at the work rate here. We're running a lot of routes. We're getting the targets. And prior to that, it was the trend. 6 targets, then 12 targets, 9 targets, then 8. If you're looking for a wide receiver who's getting volume, this could be the guy. And another bad matchup in week 13 on the road, you might be looking at him, but the volume's going to be there. You might be scared off by the Broncos, but the volume will at least be there. And he's got a quarterback that won't worry too much about a tight matchup and hang loose. So he should be still getting targets. Will it turn into fantasy points? We don't know. But compared to some of the other wide receivers on the waiver wire right now, you know targets are going to go his way. 5+ targets, pushing 6, 7, 8. That's what you're looking at with Elijah Moore. Sean Tucker. He's not a must get, but if I had Rachaad White or Bucky Irvin, I'm definitely looking his way. The Bucs got a good fantasy playoff schedule when it comes to running backs, and if something happens to Bucky or Rashad White, he's going to be getting touches and workload, and it's going to equate to fantasy production to some extent, and you do not want to fight for him off waivers with your league mates. So if I have one of those two running backs, I'm going to be looking at Sean Tucker. And the fact that we're looking at handcuff running backs, he's a handcuff running back that you may want to look at. We had a big fumble today. That wasn't great. However, if one of these backs are out, everybody's going to be running to the waiver wire to get Sean Tucker, but you can say that with a lot of handcuff running backs in the National Football League, like Roschon Johnson. He's getting work, scored a touchdown this week, a little bit less work compared to the week prior, but we're still able to do a little bit of something in the box score. This is a running back you need to pay attention to, especially if something happens to DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift's holding off strong right now, but he does have an injury history back at Detroit and earlier in his career, and that's something that nailed him early in his career as well. Things are looking strong with him right now, but anything could happen at any given time, especially at the running back position. Nick Westbrook, all he does is catches touchdowns. 6 out of his last 7 games, he has caught a touchdown, and he's on pace for that. Does not always equate to elite fantasy production, but at least you know the red zone looks are going to be there, and he's going to be getting those deep targets, and the volume of targets is starting to increase and be more consistent. That is something to look at with Nick Westbrook. Caleb Williams is starting to sling it, and we had a rough patch. We were getting fraud checked from week 8 to week 10, but we came back week 11 and week 12 just going ham with fantasy production, pushing the ball downfield, getting you some rushing yards. Caleb Williams is looking good. He's slinging it downfield. We got some matchups that could push the pace for him, and he's a rookie. Rookies are up and down, even good rookies, and that's the thing to look at, and he could be up and down, and he could give you some downs for the rest of the season, but he's a quarterback to look at right now. Devaughn Vele, the big wide receiver, is getting consistent targets, consistent workflow, and that's something to look at. Not always going to lead to good fantasy production, but he's getting you a solid baseline right now, and if you're hurting at wide receiver and you need to throw somebody in, Devaughn Vele is getting enough targets from week to week that he could get you by if you're hurting that bad. Trey Benson, another handcuff running back with a lot of upside. Throw in all the other handcuff running backs. Amari DeMarcado even. Throw in Blake Corum, any of them. Jalen Wright in this spot. And you just want to get a handcuff running back or two, or a lottery ticket running back for the back end of your roster as you get into the playoffs, because that back spot, that last spot on your roster, is not going to help you win your league. It's not going to help you for most of your lineup decisions. So make sure to get a lottery ticket running back just in case. Most of the time, it doesn't work out for you. That is the truth. However, when it does, it's league winning, because all of a sudden you got somebody starting running back, you got a running back that's getting touches, and now you got another option for your lineups. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense got some good matchups coming up. We're going to be on the road against Carolina. Then we got the Raiders. The back end of the season here, we got the Cowboys and the Panthers. You may want to pick them up if they're still available. The Dallas Cowboys, they got the Giants coming up. They got to go up against the Old Italian Stallion. Week 15, they got the Panthers on the road. This is something for you to look at here. This could help you out when you're playing the matchups. Something to look at for when you're trying to pick up defenses off the waiver wire. But let me know who you're trying to pick up this week. I want to hear about it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.